Welcome back, my fellow Americans and listeners around the world. This is Collapse Talk, episode 22, and this is your host, Gabriel, and let's dive right in. It's a new era for everybody, and as we saw, we've concluded our election, or at least the media has said we've concluded it. But yeah, we've had an election, and Joe Biden is our president-elect, it seems, with 290 or so votes based on the Associated Press. And I mean, depending on who you ask, this is a great day or it's a not so great day. But before I talk about the election or the election results, I wanted to kind of clarify on a comment I made concerning the Hunter Biden scandal. I said something along the lines of about the party, pictures of him, doing crack or whatever, allegedly. It's and I submitted a comment about, so long as kids aren't involved, then it doesn't really concern me. However, there are allegations of underage photos there, allegations, I should say. So we'll have to see about that, how that goes. I mean, people want to, pretend like this is like impossible, like that. Oh, this is just a scandal, Russian disinformation. I mean, like, You're going to tell me the son of a now president is, corrupt and a bit, it's believable. It's within the realm of reality. So that's just something that they're going to have to examine. Although with this new presidency and administration, we'll have to see about that. But yeah, it's a lot to unpack because the media has already decided on the presidency, and already the world leaders are, they're just saying, oh, well, yeah, Trump is done. Yeah. So it's just, nobody likes being the party pooper, right? Everybody's having a good time about this. And, again, I voted third party, so I have no stake in this really. Like, it's not much of an upgrade, if we're being honest here. Yeah. And then, of course, they're already grooming Kamala Harris for command. I mean, it's just so obvious, so blatant. Yes, first black Indian, like, it's just like she's the first everything. So, again, identity politics, right, at its, most obvious and blatant. And, I should also clarify, I'm starting up with the domestic first. Usually I start up with the international, and then I dive into the domestic, with this new election. And moving forward, because it's going to be interesting, at least here in the United States, moving forward, I'm going to start off with the domestic area. So, as I said, of course, everybody's happy. And, this is my personal program, so I'm going to air my opinions. Although, online and just in my personal life, I've been more vocal about being anti-Biden and what they represent. We'll just have to see, because if people wake up to this administration and just like how much things won't change, and hopefully we can really put the pressure on this administration on some real progressive policies. Then again, already you hear, I mean, it's already, I can see the appointments of different executives and already they're talking about Pete Buttigieg being on the cabinet position. So this is just classic neoliberal, yeah. So we'll see. Again, everybody's just happy. And they should be, they should at least be happy with the time we got left, because there's going to be a lot, there's going to be hell to pay. So, yeah, Joe Biden winning with the Electoral College, and also just, he had the most votes of any president. I mean, this was a very high turnout, and a high turnout typically favors Democrats. However, there have been allegations of fraud, and I don't want to... this is a very touchy subject, because it's not necessarily that I want Trump to win, but then again, like, if there are true allegations of fraud, that's something to at least look into. So there's, the mail-in ballots versus the absentee ballots and those differences, and also about observers in like the Pennsylvania or Philadelphia counting clerk areas, centers. The observers were just kind of like just pushed off to the side, like, or at least that's what they've said. And I've seen some some images of attorneys and observers being escorted by police. So that is something to look at. That seems credible, fairly credible. And also, everybody just kind of acts as though the Democrats aren't capable of cheating. I mean, the Democrats have every reason to cheat in this election because Donald Trump truly has a movement behind his, presidency. Whether or not, if he's, conning them or not, he knows how to get people behind him, right? There's a true movement. And Joe Biden doesn't have that. He doesn't have, he just has the people that are just like, okay, fine, I'll vote blue. That's what it was in this election. People truly believe that there's a brighter future, that we are suddenly going to get better. Who knows? So there's that. And wanted to make a clarification about like the mail-in ballots, right? And the absentee ballots. Because already they were talking about how 2 ballots from Alabama ended up in Katy, which is my area. Or I live in Huntsville, but this is an area that I've grown up in. And what's been said is that 2 envelopes. Well, let me quote the actual. This is from Click to Houston. So let me quote them. The 2 envelopes labeled as official election mail and addressed to the Dale County absentee election manager in Ozark, Alabama, were found in the Houston area. Denise Fierros said the mail was delivered to her hundreds of miles away in Katy this week. My daughter had brought the mail in and she said, hey, we have 2 ballots, she said. Fierros said she received the envelopes on Thursday, 2 days after Election Day. They were postmarked for October 20th. And, some other details about this. The ballots were from, or one of the ballots were from this man, David Pittman, in Midland City, Alabama. So this is very different locations. And what they're saying is it's like some sort of formatting error. Because the election managers, that they had the telephone number on the line, and apparently the sorting machine has some sort of program that picks up it, whatever. I mean, whichever way it happened, there's a sequence of numbers that it suddenly picked out, and it made a mistake about the zip address for 77450, which is the KD area zip code, and so that was shipped there. So there's a mix up there. So if that happened with these 2 ballots, I'm curious to see how much of an effect it had outside of that area, and how many more ballots were placed in the wrong address. Because, I mean, if that was like some sort of coding error, or who knows how that occurred. If it happened with these 2 ballots, it certainly happened with like hundreds or thousands more, possibly. I'm just, again, our elections have been compromised for some time. This isn't some new phenomenon. So, we'll have to see, really, about it. It's just interesting to look into, because if you try to expose true voter fraud for a candidate that is popular, and we were talking about Russiagate, and I've learned more details about that. I certainly had to learn about that. I was certainly in the Trump derangement syndrome. Let's not act as though Russia wouldn't have some, like, they do have their troll factories. I mean, they do have their disinformation machine, or, campaigns, right? It's not as though it was a direct influence, like, oh, let me put these fake ballots, or, countries are just naturally trying to mislead the general public here. So I wanted to talk a bit about like the mail-in ballots versus the absentee ballots and the differences between there, because I think everybody's getting a bit confused. Because the mail-in ballots in certain states, say like California, right? That was, they just shipped out ballots to, or mailed them out to the all registered voters in their area, right? Based on the previous information. And versus absentee, where you actually have to apply for that. And I have to, it's a bit anecdotal on my part. I just have to add my 2 cents about this, on what I think about it. And so the absentee ballots, right, and the differences between the mail-in ballots using just the what's already on file versus somebody actually applying and updating their information. Because I've canvassed using voter information, and what typically occurred was that there would be like at least, I would say like 15 to 20%, the person that I was looking for at the house, if they were like older, they had died. So I'd have to update there, or they had moved. It was, just an older house, so the person wasn't living there, and that'd be pretty often. Looking and talking to canvassing, and if that's the case with this, it's a true possibility. And there were the Michigan. There was a reporter pointing out in the Michigan voter rolls that this person had already died, like people who were like 112, or they had died years ago, but their voter information had already been just logged. So whoever was in charge of that, like they were already registered, like they had updated their information as though they had voted. Just all sorts of different points that they've made. So that's just something to look into. I mean, this is going to go to court because, Trump has already been approached by Jared Kushner, according to CNN, another possible different counselors. Although Trump and Giuliani, they are going to take this to court. They're really going to try to fight this. So I'm going to quote from CNN. Of course, CNN has their biases, but we'll just see what they're saying. So, quote, President Donald Trump's inner circle is beginning to split over his ongoing refusal to accept the results of the 2020 election, as Jared Kushner and First Lady Melania Trump advised him to come to terms with President-elect Joe Biden's victory, and his adult sons pressed him and allies to keep fighting. Kushner, the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, has approached him to concede, two sources told CNN. The First Lady, according to a separate source familiar with the conversations, has privately said the time has come for him to accept the election loss. Meanwhile, Trump's two adult sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, have urged allies to continue pressing on, and they have pushed Republicans and supporters to publicly reject the results, even as CNN and other news organizations projected the race for Biden on Saturday. So, yeah, the media and the public opinion, or at least from the left, is saying that Biden won, and they're still counting a lot. I mean, like it's not like this fully complete count on all the votes. So they make their projections really, but we'll have to see when everything is all sorted out. And of course, they're going to take it to court. I mean, Trump has until January, so he can do a lot still, and it's just interesting to see the way people are splitting over this. I mean, this is basically like ancient Rome, where people have a claim over who is emperor, and it's interesting to see Jared Kushner pushing, or trying to gently push Trump to concede power, and his sons and Giuliani and his fans, his cult, they're saying voter fraud. I mean, they're agitated. They're not happy. I mean, I was at a bar. Not that I don't usually go out. I was trying to talk to one of the cashier girls, but I really couldn't get a word in with everybody talking about Trump, or it was just something that I just drank my beer and try to dip out as quick as possible. But it was just interesting because it was right as Joe Biden was accepting or doing his like rally speech, like, yeah, I won, yeah. Like, people did not want to see that. So people are sour about this. They're pretty sour. But I'm noticing the difference, because if it was Trump, like if they had portrayed or projected Trump to win, we'd be in a really bad spot right now. We'd be in a very like chaotic spot. And one thing I like about my area, I'm glad about this town, is that there was at no point were people boarding up or were people like, oh, we got to be on edge. Oh, like, it was just nice to be in a town where you didn't notice that there was a divisive election, possible civil war on the horizon. And it was interesting because it's a college town, it was interesting to see some of the younger students, because it was on Wednesday night. I was driving around, and I was driving around the town square, like courthouse, and there was a group of kids there, doing BLM, Biden Harris, little. It was like maybe less than 10, so it wasn't much of a group. They, in the past, whenever they would meet, they would be more like just like holding up signs, they would just kind of talk with each other. But this was now, they were like actually like chanting and, oh, Black Lives, like they had energy this time. They were activated. And I'm just looking at myself, 4 years ago, I was doing the exact same thing. So it's more just like a wake-up call for myself, like, okay, they almost got me. They almost got me. So it's kind of like a sigh of relief now, seeing that. But we'll have to see, because, if Trump had won and I came out as a third-party independent voter, holy shit. Oh my goodness. Like, I would be crucified if Trump had won. Ooh, man, I would have lost friends for real. So, well, again, this is going to go to court, because it's going to drag out. Some are saying that this is already the worst possible scenario. I mean, because it's already contended and it's going to get dragged out. And, it's just interesting to see the domestic response, and then we're going to have to examine the international response. And already the world leaders are lining up behind Joe Biden. Interesting thing though, Mexico was like just coming out. Mexico has a left-wing president, and he was saying, I'm going to wait. Like he's like, I'm going to wait, which is an interesting response from Mexico. But yeah, Putin hasn't congratulated Joe Biden yet. Yeah, so we'll have to see there. And yeah, again, I was also talking about the responses from the left and the right, and interesting to see how not only like the public demonstrations, but also just a response to the Electoral College. Now, I was of the opinion that the Electoral College isn't democratic and this and that. Of course, now I realize if it was based purely on popular vote, then yes, the city was rule the country, and that wouldn't bode well for the people in the country. The people who actually run, who actually make this country go, and yeah, you don't hear from the right, these Trump supporters, we have to get rid of the Electoral College. You don't hear that at all. They're talking more about like possible voter fraud. Who knows about that? But you realize that the right doesn't like want to attack the Constitution, which is something that I actually do need to respect, because the left definitely wants to do some changes. You can already hear them talking about like getting rid of the Second Amendment. And already we have big tech censorship. So those are concerning signs that I'm starting to realize and wake up to. Not that I was really I was never an advocate for it, but I was certainly like ignorant to it, right? And yeah, it's interesting to see the response to the Electoral College from different sides, and also the lack of the so-called blue wave, because we look at, the Senate and House, and in the Senate, the Republicans lost one seat. I mean, Mitch McConnell got reelected, so whatever to that. I mean, that's just something we have to deal with. But the Democrats gained only one seat, which really shows how people were willing to, stay with Republicans. And also, Republicans gained 5 seats in the House. So Democrats in the Senate, 1 seat. Republicans in the House, 5 seats. So I have to say that it would be like gridlock, I guess, for the election itself, I would say for the administration, Joe Biden's administration, and at least standing here from a Second Amendment standpoint, that should be, I can live with that. It's just, all I just see is more problems because, the Republicans are going to be gridlocked. Plus, Democrats are trying to appeal more to Republican voters. So it's like, this is not much of a difference. So, on a lot of neoliberal policies or corporate policies, the Democrats and Republicans will get along just fine. Oh, yeah. Because they're really not going to fight for true progressive policies. We'll have to see. Again, no blue wave was projected. Of course, the polls were wrong. And then on the presidential side of things, the courts will have to sort out election fraud allegations, however they were. And yeah, at the very least, we can look to, the one silver lining of this election, which I have to say makes me pretty optimistic about, things, is the legalization of marijuana in 5 states. Now, it's not just because I'm quote unquote a pothead. It's more just about individual freedom, states' rights, this sort of thing, taxation. The revenue from this would greatly benefit these states. It's in 5 states that are actually you wouldn't have expected, or it's nice to see that it's more like rural states that are accepting this, which should tell you something, Texas, to get with the program. But this is a good sign. So yeah, we have legalization in 5 states. We have it in New Jersey, Montana, South Dakota, recreational, I should say. So in Montana, they approved the measure and constitutional amendment to legalize and set the adult use to age 21. Montana residents can possess and use and grow marijuana as of June 2021. Recreational sales are to start in 2022. So in that time period, well, you can grow it, that's what they're saying, but then it's like, how are they going to buy it legally if they have to wait another year? So it's still going to be black market? Oh well. In South Dakota, legalized medical and recreational use at one time. So cannabis remains illegal until July 1st, 2021, when South Dakota residents can start to possess and consume and grow up to 3 plants. Medical use starts on July 1st. State has until April 1st, 2022 to develop rules and regulations. Okay, and in Arizona, it's unclear when it will become legal to possess cannabis. Retail sales could start April 5th, 2021 or sooner. And then Mississippi approved medical marijuana. So not exactly recreational yet, but that's interesting to see Deep South State doing that. And Oregon did something interesting. They decriminalized all drugs. So they did the Portugal model. And they also regulated or legalized the regulation of medical use of psilocybin. So experimental psilocybin microdosing therapy, like that'll probably do wonders for mental health, public mental health. So yeah, this is certainly a step forward in terms of public rights and drug rights, if you want to call it drug rights. It's more just putting an end to this drug war is certainly a major factor in dealing with, you could say, the collapse of our society. It'll be interesting. We don't want to, of course, encourage, oh yeah, do drugs, kids. It's awesome. You want to be educational about it, of course, but it's certainly a step forward in my mind. I'm just curious to see about the response in this new administration, the response of these two crime hawks, if you want to call them, right? Joe Biden, author of the crime bill, leading to our overpopulated, broken prison system, or just a whole justice system in general, really. And then, of course, we got Kamala Harris, this crooked prosecutor, and her record. I'm just interested to see what their response is and what they're going to do with these new drug laws and these new states passing marijuana laws, because they had already said, "Oh yeah, we'll decriminalize marijuana." They're not. If they don't decriminalize it or deschedule it in the first 100 days, don't talk to me. Like, just don't talk to me. So it will be interesting to see if they honor those states' rights, and federally they can bring in their DA agents and they can bring down the hammer. And the whole thing about descheduling is also like getting the banks involved and such. It's for a group of people who talk so much about free enterprise, business, and such, they really like to hammer down on this, But of course, you gotta thank the pharmaceutical lobbies and corporations that rule us. Why use natural means of addressing mental health when you can take drugs like, pop pills, take heroin. Hey, heroin should, or lithium, or, just, yeah. So we'll have to see there. And also gun rights, of course. So there's the states' rights issue of drugs and guns, and also all sorts of things. With the gun laws, we do have like the ATF, of course, and the ATF passed some sort of I don't know. They made some new statute, some new clarification, or it had to do more with the imports of AR pistols, so not necessarily domestic. So, as a new gun owner, realizing what the ATF stands for and like what they're, you hear about the ATF considering like Waco and such, but with stuff like this, it's like, oh, okay, I see now. I see what they're saying. Of course, you still need some sort of, because I don't want to say like, it's not necessarily that I want to take away freedoms, but it's just we need to, of course, the people need to have, a check and balance with the government, but the government has to be of the people, and we still need to like keep society safe from bad criminals, or it. When I look at our laws and our law enforcement, like we have so many different agencies, like we have ATF and DEA, Border Patrol, ICE, like so many different branches and agencies, and then they're all like jockeying for their own like position, and they want to be first in line for all the resources and such. It's like you realize, okay, it's all these different departments, and they're not necessarily like they're at each other's throats. Like, it's not necessarily about safeguarding American society and fighting crime. It's like, oh, we need to be the ones on top. It's all institutional politics, and it's, of course, at the expense of the people and our rights being taken away. So there's that. And of course, I'm kind of like rambling. I'm recording this like late. Like, I just found out that I'm getting a new roommate tomorrow. So they always tell you last minute. So I'm just trying to get this recording in. It'll be interesting to see, this new person telling them about my program. So with that being said, because, I'm going to be talking topics that are highly divisive and, certainly dark, such as the Civil War. It's interesting to me to see the mainstream acceptance now of possible conflict, domestic conflict, or civil unrest. Now everybody's just like, oh, Civil War, blah. Like, it's just, I'm no warrior. It's just interesting to see how these normies, they think they're ready for war. They're not. They're really not. So, I don't know. It's just, there are people who realized as a child that they would have to prepare for a moment like this, right? And then these are people who have been like kind of up in the clouds, like everything's awesome. Yeah. Oh shit, we're about to kill each other. Like, so who knows? Who knows? But yeah, the country's just highly divided. And I guess also the thing is that we're still, even with the lockdown and with this COVID depression, because it's really like we're not out of the woods with this. It's we're not at that stage where people really are desperate, and of course we still have plenty of food left. The supply chain hasn't crumbled yet, but this, it's already cracked. That's the whole thing. It's already cracked, and we'll have to see. I'm glad that I've been stocking up on, with our school food pantry. People are telling me like, "Why are you eating out?" Like, it's just like I don't want to eat too much into my reserves just yet. That was my thing. I didn't want to say it just yet, but that was what it was really about. So now I'll have to, because I have to make space now for a new person in the place, and of course they're gonna be like, "What the fuck was all this food for?" So I'm gonna have to start eating that. But yeah, it's just something to plan out for, and try to keep things on the down low. But again, we're still going to have to see what this winter is going to bode for us, and also with just the legal proceedings in the court and what other demonstrations are going to occur. And also under a new administration, things aren't really going to change. I mean, there's going to be another police shooting and people will be back out on the streets because, look, Black Lives Matter started under Obama, right? We had Ferguson and Baltimore, like 2 separate uprisings. So, yeah. So that's really what I wanted to say about the domestic segment. And I'll probably talk a little bit more. I'll kind of link it up with in the international segment. But, again, as you can see with the electoral map, it's very clear that the country is divided. And as you see in the streets and Twitter, I certainly see from like the left, it's like people kind of like strutting like, oh, like on their high horse, like, huh, we beat those people. They're fellow Americans, and they're gonna spend 4 years ignoring the Biden presidency. They're gonna spend 4 years ignoring the corporate puppetry, and like this is what I've realized. The current situation of our republic, which is turning into a banana republic, it's like a weekend at Bernie's situation, or a weekend at Biden's, if you want to call it. Just think about it. Imagine, Amazon, Raytheon, they're like, okay, fuck, with the corpse of Joe Biden, just like, okay, oh, look, careful, it's France and the UK. Hey, guys, just trying to like, trying to keep up appearances as though the United States is not crumbling within. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see with this administration, and just moving forward with Trump, because like they're gonna try to slam Trump. Like they're really gonna arrest this guy. They're gonna try to do it at least, and if that happens, his people, they can seriously take up arms for him. Like he just has to say the word, man. He has to, like, all he has to do is say, meet here, do this, that, done. There people will respond. So people don't realize, at least on my side, the left. Well, I have to be more independent and apolitical now. They don't realize that like they're disjointed. They're not organized. Like we have so many different groups that we have to like rope in together. And you realize in all these different civil war, at least like in the Spanish Civil War situation, the right, they already have their hierarchy set, and they already figure out who's the alpha, and like, okay, this is our guy and this is who we're gonna fight for. Meanwhile, the left is just these different coalitions and cooperative groups. And then you have one group that's like, yeah, fine. Like we'll play along, and then they just slowly start purging the undesirables. So yeah, I mean, I have to look at all these different like historical civil war situations and revolutions. I was watching, just as a quick like reminder on like the different like say like the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution. I was watching the history oversimplified videos, and it's a good way because they're very informative and fairly accurate on these different figureheads and different events historically. And every time, and say in France with the Reign of Terror and Robespierre and the Jacobins, it's always that fanatical group that riles everybody up, and then once they get into power, anybody who thinks differently, anybody who's not with the program is gone. So yeah, I mean, the fact that people don't see that as a possibility here, or a reality, which could definitely occur, is concerning. It's for a country that doesn't that shits its pants about Marxist communist movements, it does a terrible job at educating people on how those movements come to be, because it always foments out of chaos. Like that's what they thrive off of, the chaos, and then they seize control. The populist masses like, hey, rise up with us, and then so we'll have to see. So I wanted to wrap that up with the domestic sphere and also just talk more about the international area. And we could talk this, because we have our COVID pandemic, and with the winter rolling around, those cases are rising up, and certainly going to get worse, possibly. At least for Europe, they're getting their second lockdown wave, and there was already reports of a mutation in Denmark. In northern Denmark, they had to cull 15 million minks, and 250,000 Danes were put in lockdown Friday. And they're saying that this mutated strain has already infected 12 people, and it's just curious to see this response and this industry. Of course, when you hear mink farms, okay, that's not possibly the most humane industry, or maybe they are. Maybe they do take care of their animals. I'm not here to judge, but yeah. So they're saying that this new strain has been detected, and to be safe, they just culled these critters, these minks. And what's also being shown now is that possibly the entire industry is going to die because of this. So it's really curious to see the response from the government with these lockdowns, and also just to see the economic ramifications, because it's certainly a good thing as though living in Texas, where we have more loose lockdown. Of course, businesses are at least the mainstream businesses are saying to wear a mask. It's just nice to have that freedom of choice. It's just nice. I have to respect that now. I have to be grateful for it, because I don't know if I could live in a place like that where the government's everywhere up in your business. So this new mutation and these purges and lockdowns that are occurring, who knows if the new mutation will spread. And I read somewhere that also it kind of prevents your ability to develop antibodies for the new disease, for the new strain. So that's curious. But with these new lockdowns, we're seeing the protest response and riots break out, and also just to see there's a mass migration. Like Paris, there were people trying to leave the city, and all the different roadways were getting clogged up. All the different newscasters were like, wow, this is dystopian. Oh, really? Dystopian. So yeah, that's what's happening in Europe. Europe is the new epicenter for this virus. They're saying per capita there's more new cases than in the United States. So we'll see if that transfers here. Who knows? I mean, they're going to be pretty strict with that lockdown this time around. That could possibly precipitate a global economic crash for this new quarter, possibly. Who knows? But yeah, that's just something to look out for with the new lockdowns. And, also with Europe, it's not just the COVID pandemic breaking out. Now they have something new to deal with Islamic terrorism, radical terrorism. And yeah, as we saw in France, we had the teacher who did a free speech seminar who got executed because he portrayed a caricature of the Prophet Muhammad. And then there was another attack in, is it Nice or Nice? I'm not sure. But in another city in France where there was a knife attack, a woman got beheaded. So another, terrorist attack from there. And then also in Austria, there was a shooting. So it appears that Europe is under attack. The UK upgraded their terror warning. So yeah, they're on high alert there. And the Muslims around the world are just rallying up behind this and, saying death to whatever infidels. It's, again, religious extremism, fundamentalism, people just, tribalism, people just looking for an excuse to kill each other. Who knows? Over a caricature, over a cartoon. It's just, yeah. This is people in the 21st century. Human beings in the 21st century. You gotta love it. So you got religious conflicts and extremism, and then also ethnic conflicts and between the Armenians and Azerbaijanis and Nagorno-Karabakh. And what's been shown is that, or so-called reported, is that the Azeri forces have taken Shusha, and which is the second largest city in Nagorno-Karabakh. Of course, Armenian officials are denying it. Who knows what to believe right now? The fighting seems pretty intense from the footage that I've seen so far. Again, this is just a conflict that's waging right now. The supplies and support that the Azeris are getting from Turkey seem to be giving them a leg up. So Armenia seems to be kind of, on their heels at the moment. They're taking pretty hard toll. Of course, they try to make their ceasefire agreements and, people are violating it. Both sides are claiming, oh, you're the violator. So, again, we'll have to see. I read another report about Iran moving forces up near the border just to, be on standby. So, yeah, again, this could, get out of control. So we have to examine it and keep an eye on it. It's just one of those forgotten wars that people forget. So we'll see. Of course, Armenians in the United States are definitely posting this online, trying to get support there. Armenians have a pretty good influence in this country. Yeah, I mean, ethnic conflicts are something that people just get really wound up about, get very nationalistic about it. I have to look at, what would I have to look at myself, what would I do if I was Armenian, and my homeland's under attack and I'm just sitting here shit posting on the internet. What would I do? How would I feel about that? Then have to look at my country or my homeland, I should say. My country is America, but my homeland and how I would feel about that. And honestly, it would just be I would have to just see what are the circumstances, and also just I have no stake in this. Why would I, So, yeah, there's that. The conflict there, and just a proxy war with Turkey and other allies, allies and enemies, new Cold War, and also just the complications and the closer we are to World War III, which definitely could break out at any moment. But we'll have to see what this election and the results there and just how these legal proceedings are drawn out. But I wanted to talk about the response from China, particularly how they feel about Joe Biden. And I was reading this from New York Times, and what they're saying is that they're cautiously optimistic about this. They're just like, they welcome the new presidency. Of course, it's like you're getting this from their state media, so they're trying to portray themselves as, yes, we are the journalists, and we are like they're propagandists. That's what they are in China. So what they're really trying to point out, and I'll quote them, is that, quote, many outlets continue to warn of future tensions between the superpowers and suggested that American democracy was in decline, and they're willing to welcome a new president because Trump did sour relations, but they're really to see the media be cautious about this new presidency and understanding that like our democracy is tumultuous, because they point to our chaos and say, look, this is what democracy is. You want this kind of chaos here? Like, people that are probably genuinely are just so more concerned about their immediate survival that they're just like, fuck it. Like, you take care of everything. I don't care. I'm not going to stir up trouble. Like, that's probably just what life is like over there. And yeah, I'll read further. Quote, Chinese propaganda signaled a new phase in U.S.-China relations. It also continued to push a narrative of American decline, a constant refrain in recent months, as an increasingly wealthy and confident China has tried to market itself to the rest of the world as a viable alternative for global leadership. So they're really trying to point out, they're openly saying America's in decline. That's what they're openly saying, and they're kind of looking, puffing their chest like, hey, look at us, we're the new Chad in town. And they're focused on the Black Lives Matters, so they're probably looking at our racial divisions, and because look, China's racist, like they're deeply racist, let's be honest. So they're definitely going to look to us like, look at them, they got all these different races, we're just one group, who knows. Yeah, they definitely try to take advantage of that. But you really see that they're not, all buddy. They're definitely trying to step over us. Like they look at the United States as like we're in their way. Like they have all these goals and aspirations and we're just in their way. So yeah, really keep an eye on this and how Joe Biden and Xi Jinping are going to work together. Because for whatever reason, Joe Biden is going to try to stir up tensions with Russia and try to really be like, oh, Russia gave, Russia, try to get back at Putin. And to think that Russia is actually a threat to us, I did believe that for whatever reason, but they're not. It's China. And Joe Biden's not going to stand up to China, as we can see. Who knows? Again, who knows what's going to happen, really? But they're going to try to put it into the trade wars, and yeah. So there's so many things to look at. So we have that to look forward to. I also want to talk about, or recap on the Nigeria protests that were breaking out. State violence by the police on the protesters, people getting killed. And reading from Al Jazeera, they're showing that 4 were arrested, some protest leaders. So they're definitely cracking down on this. They're trying to they have a national assembly, these protesters, and they kind of cracked down on there, arrested the leaders, organizers. what they're saying from Amnesty International is that about 56 people have died across the country, and there has been looting and rioting as a result of this. There was some footage that I saw of stockpiled relief centers that the protesters and just broke into, and they started just taking, just like, they have them like burlap sacks, so they're just taking like piles and piles. So yeah, and a police station got like raided. Basically they set on fire. So some real riots and some real chaos breaking out in Nigeria that can. I'm not seeing too much now. This is like really the only like the most recent article that I've seen so far. But everybody was posting about this on social media, and now silence because everybody's focused on the election. But we'll have to see. But yeah, this is some real crackdowns on the people there. People getting killed. Police brutality. So yeah, we'll have to see about that in Nigeria. But then in Chile, where they had protests and crackdowns, the people have recently had a referendum voting to rewrite their constitution that was based on the Pinochet dictatorship, with neoliberal policies. So the people had come out and they voted for 78% on a referendum to revise the constitution. Well, actually, here's what they've voted on, right? So, quoting from BBC, right? An overwhelming majority of 79% also voted in favor of a new constitution being drawn up by a body which will be 100% elected by a popular vote rather than one which would have been made up by 50% of members of Congress. So basically trying to have more democracy. I'm not sure exactly how their system worked beforehand, but this certainly just adds more into democracy and trying to add a new body or branch in the legislative field. So there's that to look at. It's nice to see that because, before what the protests that occurred last year, and if you listen to my earlier episodes, you can probably hear me talking about it as it were occurring. The president at the time was using kind of the language as though he was in a war, but then I think he kind of stepped away from that when he realized that it was basically an uprising. Like, okay, we have to compromise with these people or they're gonna eat us. So yeah, so it's nice to see that they're doing it through democratic means and trying to make some changes. And also, I didn't realize this, or I didn't know this before. This is not the first time they've had a referendum. The whole in 1988, the people had a referendum and forced Augusto Pinochet, or just Pinochet, to step down. And yeah, so this is nice to see for the people of Chile. I'm just curious to see now with this kind of like, they're calling it the pink wave. So I'm interested to see in Latin America as it starts moving more to the left, how this administration, a Biden administration, would treat that, because they're definitely going to want to keep those neoliberal policies. So we'll see. We will see with that. But, foreign policy under Joe Biden is going to be interesting because it's going to be the same neoliberal stuff. And I'd be willing to wager that he's going to get us into a war. My theory is Syria. They might play Syria and might try to get us into war with Russia. Who the fuck knows? That's one theory. Maybe Venezuela. I don't know. I certainly see him expanding the war on terror for whatever reason, finding a new enemy. And if he doesn't get a war abroad, if he has a civil war, then he will be the great uniter or something like that. Who knows? I was just watching or looking at one of the, I think it was Noemi, and they had like a family photo, and everybody's hugging him, and he's just like, "I did it." Like, not to like, I was trying to do like an old man impression, old senile man, but you know, it's a good family moment. But then you see like what he's actually representing for, like what he represents and what he's gonna bring to the United States. It's just like they're really like just trying to gloss over what he's gonna do for us. Who knows? So that's at least the international segment that I want to talk about. And yeah, so we'll talk about the natural world a bit, or just natural phenomenon that are occurring. And what what had recently happened was there was today, a earthquake in Massachusetts, a 4.0 earthquake. So that broke out. And, it's not usually an area that gets earthquakes, so who knows what that was for, what happened there. I'm just curious to see all these different like seismic events. So we have this earthquake in Massachusetts, and then yesterday, or I should say on the 7th, there was an earthquake in Alaska, 5.0 earthquake. There was another earthquake a couple weeks before that caused like a little tsunami. And then there was an earthquake in Turkey, Greece, and that killed some people, caused some buildings to collapse. There was a tsunami there as well, or like a mini tsunami. I'm no expert on seismic activity and tectonic plates and such. It's just, I kind of imagine these different earthquakes as though like the earth just, I think that's what it is happening. It's just this earth is releasing tension in one area, and that causes another area to like kind of get a little tighter, and that area releases tension in another area in the globe. So so that's kind of how I see it, right? And of course we have to look at California and the San Andreas Fault. And who knows if people are like crossing their fingers, like please, LA, just go in the ocean. Like it's kind of funny, but it's just, I feel like the devastation will be so total that like they'll kind of wake up to like the chaos and like, oh, like we've been kind of hoping for this, and look at what's happening. Or who knows, maybe people actually genuinely will be happy and be like, fuck you, California, which is not good. It kind of really shows how divided we are. But yeah, so that was something to look at seismic activity wise. And we also have, being that we're in November now and the winter months, we have in the Arctic sea ice research on, or just different graphs and observations of the ice is not compacting as much, or it's for the first time, what they're saying in October, since records began, the ice hasn't been freezing. And for October, it was pretty hot. If I'm being honest with you, it was pretty damn hot. It's just not good to see that the Arctic is already starting to melt and thaw out so soon. Already we're in the 20s. So definitely within the 2040s, like it's all going to be just ocean. They call it the Blue Ocean event, right? And yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, it's already here. It's already here. The no more sea ice. And what that has, the ramifications of that with the jet stream, right? We just had like a recent Arctic blast. We had a cold blast there, which I welcomed. Like it, I kind of like having winters out here because it's cold. It's not like blizzardy. We get ice here sometimes. It's not like, North Dakota, like blizzards, that sort of thing, Arctic conditions. So, yeah, the jet stream is going to have all these weather patterns, all these significant phenomenon occurring, and people are going to, of course, with this winter rolling around, I predict it's going to get cold. Like I predict it's going to be a cold winter, and people are going to be like, oh, well, how about that global warming, huh? Hey, this is a snowball. Oh, fuck you. That sort of thing. You're going to hear that a lot. It's climate change, so it's not necessarily, it's going to get hot. It gets pretty hot. This is a hot November as is. When that sun is out and there's no clouds, it's hot. Which, it's not bad. Kind of like wearing shorts and t-shirt and, just getting some sunlight. Not saying it's a bad thing, but, it's nice now to, because I do deliveries, and this is like the only work I've been able to do, which is not bad. It's just I would like more work. I don't know. I keep applying, and we'll see how that goes. But it's just nice to have fair conditions to actually be able to do work and go about my day, because June, July, like I was being cooked alive. Like I just couldn't do it. Like and I just hate, because I sweat a lot, so I just hate like going about my business and I'm already drenched in sweat and people are looking at me like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, are you not the sun? Like we're boiling alive. But yeah, so that's something to look out for. But yeah, so we have the weather patterns and the climate change events there. We also have Hurricane Ida. Either it's Ida or ETA. I'm going to say Ida. And that, formed, and that formed as a Category 5. It went from Category 1 to a Category 5 in like a 24-hour period. Like, that is crazy. And it hit Honduras. And it's done some significant damage there. Don't exactly know where the death toll is. It's not... any death is tragic from this, honestly, but it's not like as though like thousands died. So it's it's a hurricane, but it's created flooding, mudslides, all sorts of damage. Washed out roads and highways, bridges. That's the thing with these type of weather events, because it's not like the storm comes in and kills everybody. It's the damage it does to the infrastructure, support systems. If people don't have access to clean water, that's gonna, it's not gonna take long before people start getting sick and dying. So that's really the killer, the damage afterwards, which helps being, I'm glad that I grew up in the Caribbean and I had that experience dealing with storms. Like I haven't really made this point to my family, but we were already like preppers in a way, dealing with storms and stuff like that. Having water and food ready to deal with for extended periods if the power went out. But this is a very different situation. This is Honduras. This is an area that's kind of like my homeland, Dominican Republic. So I don't know. I don't want to use the term. It's a more of a developing area, right? Of course, they probably have some affluent, wealthy areas. But yeah, they probably need international aid and get the word out there. Get people aid and relief moving there. But it's going to be interesting to see with these more and more climate events and disasters occurring, where areas are getting hit hard and just being wiped out by these disasters. And we having to deal with our own problems. We won't have the resources and the ability to get to there, so we'll just pretend as though nothing's happening. I think that's what's going to increasingly occur. Yeah, which will create climate refugees, and then people are going to try to get here where things are good. Well, depending if we actually are able to maintain stability here. So, yeah, the climate refugee crisis is just getting warmed up. We're really going to have to see that, because billions of people are going to be on the move and probably won't make it. So, yeah. So, I wanted to, talk about, because I mentioned about the dark winter, right? And we have to deal with the combination of economic uncertainty, COVID, lockdown. I'm talking at least specifically in the US, but around the world, of course, political instability, economic unrest, just all different. The perfect storm for a chaotic and messy winter. Of course, I'm glad that I'm in a quiet area where, people are just honest and humble, not trying to stir up trouble. I've just been trying to tone up some skills and trying to get myself in the headspace of if I get evicted tomorrow, how am I going to survive? That's honestly where my head is at now. So, I've been doing some things I did like a little primitive fire. I just gathered up some firewood and I did this, I basically made tinder from using the dryer lint and putting that in a toilet paper roll. And I had this, I told myself, don't use a Bic lighter, use one of these magnesium rods or striker scratchers. So I was able to do it. It took me a minute, but I was able to do it. So that was something I was kind of proud of. And, now I feel a little more confident in doing a camping trip. Which, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to try to mix that in with my hunting experience. So I'll try to have a camping hunting trip in the future, maybe December or January. Just for myself, just to have fun and just get out there. And, of course, somebody stole my tent. So either I'll have to save up for that or I'll just sleep in my car, which I could probably do with no problem. I have no issue with that. But that's just something to look forward to. Everything's going to get pretty wild out here, in the country at least. So I'm going to try to make the best of it. Just something to, I just want to get out there. I'm always cooped up here. I never really take the time to, breathe in the nature around me, just get lost, right? So I'll have to figure that out and get that planned up. But I already have my bug out equipment, and there was no chaos as I had, initial chaos I should say, as I predicted, so I could at least put my bug out equipment to good use and just train, field training. That's what it really is. And also just scouting out on the terrain and if I wanted to actually go hunting and seeing where I needed to go. But yeah, that's something that I want to look forward to. So that's my natural segment. And again, I recorded this a bit late because I wanted to get some sleep soon, or at least get a recording in before this new roommate moves in. And yeah, but before I wrap up, I want to have some closing words, because I've had, whenever I'm off air, right, whenever I'm just going about my daily life, I do try to expand on my expand my field of knowledge, right, and on different speakers and personalities on the internet or in the academic field. And I discovered 2 new people who resonate with me, right? And they're Chris Hedges and Sam Hyde. Of course, say what you want about both of them. The thing I like about Chris Hedges is he's the first doomer scholar. I mean, there's probably so many more, but he's actually fully saying oh yeah, no, America's fucked. It's just nice to hear that from an academic standpoint, as somebody who has traveled as he has around the world, examining collapsed societies and civilizations. So that's something, if you haven't listened to him, which you most likely have already, that's something that I have to get. I have to get one of his books and just read that. And also it's Sam Hyde, more of an internet person, and he he's one of those people you discover somebody where you're damn it, why couldn't I listen to this guy 5 years ago? Why couldn't I listen to this? So it's definitely nice to hear it now, because of course I'm realizing there's a lot that I messed up on, a lot that I missed out on, but I still got I still got plenty of time to make some changes in my life, like, it's nice to realize that, like, it's a breath of relief. Like, okay, it's not too late, although, I kind of wasted a lot of time, but, it's just something, just having to get my feet off the ground and having to, pick myself up on, I feel very fortunate being in my position in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things, of course, that I do need to work on, and, this is the stage of my life where I can afford to be a bum, I guess. Not that I am, but it's just, we'll have to see. But, there's just a lot. There's a lot that I have to sort out. And of course, I'm recording this and doing all this as I'm in college. And already I'm just like, I'm most likely seeing myself drop out more than anything. Of course, that's a scary proposition, and having to deal with real world adult stuff. We'll have to see there. But, like, I just, the way I see it is just like I'm fucked either way, with a degree, without a degree. It's just like, at least, okay, yeah, sure, with the degree I can do, get the cushy corporate job and get my benefits and all that. But, like, for me, survival is more than important than, doing that. And, if I can just, because I've already kind of, like, with, say what you want, but, setting up an Acorn account and just, like, putting some kind of savings, just something that I can just weekly put some money away, hopefully be in a position to save up and buy some land or do something. I don't know. It's just, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But if I can just get something cheap, because I don't need a lot. I don't need a mansion. I just need somewhere to have a roof over my head. I foresee myself being in tricky spots in the future, but, I think the economy and the way, like, our generation is going to have to deal with, the housing market and such, just any kind of roof over, any kind of shelter is a blessing, really. So, that's what I'll kind of end on. This is a very short episode, of course, but we'll have to see what, transpires with this new administration, with this new world that we're living in. We didn't get our purge just yet, but nothing's changed. And people are going to go back to sleep. They're going to, if you try to point out the real, problems with this administration, they're going to silence you. Big tech censorship. It's not going to get any better. And then in 4 more years, either Trump is going to run for re-election, or somebody who knows what they're doing, and somebody who's worse will step up. So we'll have to see. But until then, as I said, I'm going to try to make this more weekly. Well, just, dealing with the new roommate now, and also just trying to work and make some money, keep a roof over my head, and also, just life, daily life, and personal stuff, having to balance that and balance this. So I'll try to make this a weekly thing, right? And also, I talked about my Kenshi playthrough, which I haven't been able to get to with a second playthrough, which, I mean, the less video games I play, it's for the better, but it's definitely something that I wanted to, do, right? And show off, and really just try to create some kind of series for people who aren't familiar with the game, but who might be interested, because I certainly feel like it's a one of a kind game, really, Kenshi. And there's that. I do have my Patreon. If you feel that you want to support my work, you can get early access, ad-free access for $1 a month. Of course, that's if you feel it's worth the time. I know everybody else is struggling right now, and $1, even for a monthly subscription is quite asking for a lot. So, again, it's at your own discretion, really. It's more just me trying to build off of something. So, yeah, there's that. So, Patreon, do have my YouTube, Twitter, my Twitter handle at collapsetalkpod, and my email, collapsetalkpod@outlook.com. Just all the different plugs that I can think of at the moment. Yeah, I'm a bit fried. It's late, but yeah, I just wanted to get this recording out. Appreciate y'all listening, and hopefully y'all are just keeping a level head. If you're happy and satisfied with the results or not, I urge you to, not look at your fellow American as the enemy, because that's really going to make us weaker in the end. But, at the same time, I wouldn't, if somebody's disrespecting you at the least, I could talk more and more about like what you should and shouldn't do, but at the very least, just understand that any kind of fight and confrontation is not worth it. So just do what you can to preserve yourself. Is what I should say. So, yeah. With that being said, thank you for listening. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you on the next one.